Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News.
At the moment, Nigerian university teachers on the platform of the Academic Staff Union of Nigerian universities are on strike, protesting what they call government's lackadaisical approach to the issue of funding for the country's universities. However, the issue of funding constitutes just a fraction of what the university teachers have been fighting for, all of them encapsulated in an agreement signed in 2009 between the government and the umbrella body of university teachers in Nigeria, ASUU. The senior advocate of Nigeria, Dr. Wale Babalakin, is the chairman of the federal government ASUU renegotiation team. He was pro-chancellor of the University of Maiduguri, 2009 to 2013, chairman committee of pro-chancellors of all federal universities, 2009 to 2013, and pro-chancellor currently of the University of Lagos. He's here to discuss the direction the work of his committee intends to take, or the direction that committee is going to take. Dr. Babalakin, welcome to the morning show. Good to have you here.
Good morning. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you, Doctor, for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yes, thank you. We've been on this ASUU agreement since 2009, actually, when before you, it was Mr. Gamale Onosode of blessed memory, who was a federal government negotiator. And then you took over in 2013. There was some kind of agreement. And now, since November 5, the university teachers have done tools, and they are even calling for your removal. They say you are the problem because you don't want to negotiate and that your ideas are not in sync with theirs. What exactly is the problem? Are you the problem?
Thank you very much. I think that is far-fetched. I think I find it difficult to use ASUU's type of language, but I will, as much as possible, try and communicate the issues. The federal government set up a negotiating committee. The president, through the Minister of Education. I must immediately say that the committee is probably the strongest committee that has been put together to negotiate with ASUU. The current members are Professor Nimi Briggs, an exceptional scholar, Pro-Chancellor, University of Lokoja now, but former Vice Chancellor, University of Port Harcourt. There is also Professor Femi Bamiro, a great scholar, former Vice Chancellor, University of Ibadan, and now Pro-Chancellor, Tai Sholari University of Education. Professor Muzeli Jubril, former Executive Secretary of the NUC, and now Pro-Chancellor, I believe, in Lafia. Architect Lawrence Ngbale, a very experienced architect, a formidable politician, and somebody who understands the art of negotiation. That is the government team. Now, it sounds strange that ASUU is complaining that I am the issue when all members of the government team have stated categorically that whatever views I've expressed are the collective views of the committee. So whatever I say here are the collective views of the committee. This is a signed advert by all members of the committee. I think it's the first paragraph that has this. I can read it out, or you can read it out.
That's fine, you can read it out.
So it's contrary to the assertion by the union, the views communicated by the chairman of the committee, Dr. Wale Babalakin, are the collective views of the government renegotiating team. These views were arrived at after extensive debate and were communicated in writing in the essential report that was delivered to ASUU in July 2017.
Okay.
So I have no personal views. I'm simply privileged to be leading a formidable team put together by the Minister of Education to negotiate with ASUU. Where are we? Please, let us be very clear on the narrative. We as a team believe very strongly that we must have first-class education in Nigeria, and that there is no compromise about this. there is no way we're going to delay achieving first-class education. We, as a team, spoke to ASUU. What do you think is required to fund education in Nigeria? ASUU made a proposal that on the average, it will cost $3,365 to train each student in the Nigerian university system. And that view was communicated to the Nigerian Universities Commission and also communicated to us directly. When you add this together, what you will achieve is something close to 2 trillion naira.
Well, ASUU says the agreement is that on an annual basis, government will spend about 220 billion naira on the university system in Nigeria. And that government has not done that, and that the money that was released this year in September was money that should have been released like a year ago.
Again,
and that, we're dealing with a question of bad faith on the part of government.
Again,
you are the one quoting trillion.
Yes. Now, let me tell you, which is why I think it is important to separate the narrative. What I am giving to you is ASUU's presentation to our own committee. Based on the figures they mentioned, if you add it up, you require 2 trillion per annum. What they are quoting to you did not emerge from either our committee or from Bolanle Olawale's committee. Apparently, there was an MOU between ASUU and President Jonathan's government, where President Jonathan offered to release 220 trillion per annum and did release the first tranche. If you heard the Minister of Education...
You said 220 trillion
220 billion per annum,
right,
making a total of 1.3 billion. Thank you for the correction. If you did listen to the minister at the onset, the first statement he made on the ASUU strike is that as Minister of Education, he will not put his hand on any agreement that is unsustainable. He will not promise ASUU what it cannot achieve. What has been happening all along is that ASUU manages to hold the government down, get the government to sign an agreement that he knows that will never be able to implement, and then continues to strike based on this. That MOU, I've seen a copy of it. I think it's for those who signed it to explain it. It's not part of the mandate of our committee, and it did not arise from the Bolanle Olawale's report. Let me even go a step further. When President Jonathan paid this money, you know where the money came from?
I don't know.
I only just gathered. It came from TED Fund. So it was not an additional money into the system. It was using what was available to the system to pay. That tells you how tight it was for government to find the money. We are saying, very simply, let us go by accurate information and viable data. We are not interested in platitudinous generalization. ASUU spread it around the whole world that UNESCO said that there must be a minimum of 26% spent on education. I don't disagree with the volume. What I disagree with is the narrative. We have asked ASUU for 1.5 years for a copy of the UNESCO report that dictated that. They can't come up with it.
No, it's not about a report. It's about commitment. It's about government saying we prioritize education.
Yes.
And only a few days ago in Paris,
yes,
the president himself said, oh, we're going to place a lot of emphasis on education if we can get the resources.
Valid statement. Very valid statement that I support. But our position as a committee is when you're coming to us and saying this is your source of information, let it be accurate. We're not here to do elementary debate. Let me tell you what our position is about funding. We say that we must recreate Nigerian universities. In our view, we've come up with what we call a needs-based assessment, needs-based budgeting. So if a university requires more than 26%, we must find it. You can't tie yourself to a percentage of a budget, especially in the face of the challenges of the economy, which fluctuates very spectacularly. Let me tell you where ASUU's argument falls flat. Last year, the government budget was 9 trillion. This year, it's going to be 8.5 trillion. If you had tied your funding to a percentage, this year, you'll be spending less. University education cannot be reacting to such vagaries, to such inconsistencies. So we see, as a means of funding education, tying it to percentage is inaccurate and is not a scholarly proposition.
Well, ASUU has agreed to come to a meeting with your committee today at 1 p.m. So I guess when you leave here, you'll be heading towards Abuja.
I think that's with the Ministry of Labour.
Or is it Labour?
Yes, I think that's
not with your committee.
No, not with our committee.
Okay.
But we are willing.
But what is your own input into that meeting? Is there any input in terms of your expectations?
I expect that if the Ministry of Labour is having a meeting, it will probably invite the Ministry of Education. The Ministry of Education is very aware of where we stand. We want a properly funded university education system. We want funds that are created which are sustainable. We want a ring-fenced funding, not a funding exposed to the vagaries of Nigerian economy.
So when you say funds that are created, which is sustainable, what do you actually mean by that?
Where we disagree with ASUU.
Right.
ASUU says federal government must provide all the money for funding education. That is where we disagree.
And what's your stance?
Our stance is federal government should provide as much money as it can afford, but education can only be funded from all sources.
Okay.
We have to allow the private sector, we have to allow government sector, and we also have to allow individuals to contribute to education funding.
I know that you also talked about the establishment of student loan scheme, correct? As well as, is that correct? ASUU
has ascribed that to me again wrongly. That is a policy statement from the National Council of Education. The National Council of Education rose from a meeting and said, we've looked at the challenges of education, and we are encouraging states to create student loan schemes and also create an education bank, and that this will help indigent students. ASUU would like you to believe that I'm not supporting public education. But as I repeat, I'm only one out of 5 very, very competent people who are taking the position. I support public education wholeheartedly. I went to University of Lagos for a first degree. I have a clear idea of what a university was in 1978. What we're seeking to achieve is to at least get back to that stage if we cannot improve it. I was telling ASUU members, my first constitutional law class was a tutorial being handled by an exceptional scholar, Professor Jadish, Dr. Jadish Selakonda, later Professor Jadish of blessed memory. We got into the class, and she counted us, and found out we were 10. And she said to us, oh, no, I can't teach this class, it's too large. This tutorial class is simply too large. And we were alarmed, why is this so large? And she said, well, go and tell the dean that I mentioned to you that this class is just too large. Naive young boys, we ran to the dean, and the dean admitted, he said, yes, she's right. The class is a bit large. I'm expecting 2 lecturers back from sabbatical. Once they come in, I will put some of you in the other tutorial class. We ended up, I think, 5 or 7 in the class. That is teaching. That is communication.
But do you know what you have also been accused of?
Yes.
Not just the point about the loans. I mean, one newspaper wrote a story and said you were pushing for student loans.
Yes.
I think we used to have that before in this country,
Yes.
the Federal Student Loans Board.
Yes.
They're saying that you as chairman, and it's one of the reasons they are attacking you, you are insisting that Nigerian students in public universities should pay tuition.
Again,
what's your position on tuition fees?
Again, if you read our release earlier, which I must read out to you on tuition fees. Okay. It's on paragraph 5 of our release. It says, we do not know from where ASUU got the figures that it has been peddling around the whole country. However, the inconsistency in the figures are glaring. While Professor Lawan Abubakar, the ASUU Zonal Coordinator for Bauchi, stated in his article published in Pulse News on 3rd October 28 that our committee has proposed 500,000 naira per annum as tuition fees to be paid by university undergraduates. The ASUU Zonal Coordinator for Ibadan, Dr. Adeye Adejumo, stated in the Punch newspaper of 3rd October 28 that our committee was planning to impose tuition fees of 350,000 naira. Aside from the fact that our committee has no power to impose fees on students, we are at loss regarding the source of the said figures. However, the contradiction demonstrates clearly that the figures are incorrect and should not be countenanced by anybody.
So what are the correct figures?
We are not in a position to impose fees. All we are saying is that education must be funded properly from government sources, from private sources, from institutional sources. There must be no deficit in funding. If the federal government comes today and says, I have all the funds for the 2 trillion to fund university of education, why should we object? The only thing we've also added is that we're not going to create a bonanza. We're not going to give money without a purpose. We're insisting that there must be key performance indicators. If we give, for example, FUNAB, if we give FUNAB a particular amount of money, we want FUNAB to be able to get back to us and say, for the money you've given us, in 3 years' time, we'll be here. In 5 years' time, we'll be here. In a number of years, we'll be able to become the leading agricultural university in the country. But not give you money without purpose. But ASUU says, no, we don't want any key performance indicators.
You claim that one of the reasons for the ongoing strike in the universities is the refusal for lecturers to agree to being held accountable for funds released for the development of education.
That is our position. And that narrative must change.
Well, you know one thing that many Nigerians complain about?
Yes.
You listed your colleagues in that committee.
Yes.
All of you are either professors or you've been involved in education for the better part of your lives. They will expect that you as negotiators would understand the plight of the university system. You know, arrears have not been paid, research grants are not given, the Nigerian universities don't even show up on the ranking of world universities and all of that. And yet, is this educated people, to use your word, very competent people who are negotiating so hard? Why is this such a problem to just be nice to the university system and the university teachers?
We're extremely generous.
Who speak the same language with you, obviously.
We're extremely generous with the university system. I'm not aware that there's any federal university in Nigeria today that has outstanding salaries. If there is any Nigerian federal university that has outstanding salary, the management has mismanaged the money. Because the money comes directly from the federal government treasury every month. So if anybody comes here and says his own federal university, they've not paid salaries, the monies have been mismanaged. Nothing more.
So how do you think all of this will be resolved? Because, I mean, ASUU cannot stand on one side of the trench, you know, and then, you know, the committee is also saying, well, you either take our position or leave it.
We've never said that. We've never refused to negotiate. We've never had no-go areas. We've never said this is our position. The institution that has no-go areas is ASUU. We are open to negotiations, and we believe that negotiations must be concluded on the table. In our response, which came out, paragraph 2 says, unfortunately, we are compelled to respond to the allegations of ASUU, which have been made severally in the print and electronic media, because some Nigerians may begin to believe the inaccurate narratives that have been consistently provided by ASUU. We said, as we stated in our previous communication on this matter, we believe that negotiations are best done on the table rather than on the pages of newspaper. Hence, we have been very reluctant to respond to the campaign of our co-negotiators. Our position is that dialogue on the same table is the most effective way of resolving issues. So we remain open to dialogue. The day after the ASUU strike, I appealed to ASUU to come back to the negotiating table. The Minister of Education appealed to ASUU to come back to the negotiating table. Now, let me just play something back to you. Do you know, and I'm quoting Professor Olu Akikugbe, Professor Akikugbe, who just retired recently.
Yes.
I'm quoting him. At his valedictory, he said he's pained that sometime in the 70s, Nigerian University College Hospital Ibadan was the 5th or 6th rated hospital in the Commonwealth. I've even heard in some places that it was the 4th rated hospital in the Commonwealth. You know how large the Commonwealth is? For a Nigerian institution to be number 5. Why don't we go back and think about how that institution was created? Let's think about how it was funded, that it became the 5th in the Commonwealth. Today, there is no Nigerian universities in the top 600. We find that disagreeable. But we know that the system we are operating now, if not corrected properly, will not get there. So we appeal to our friends in ASUU. Please be patriotic, be Nigerian to the core, be interested in education. Don't let's continue to create Nigerian scholars. Let's go back to creating international scholars, which is where we were before. That is our mandate, that is our interest, and that is what we've been told to do. Well, thank you.
Well, Dr. Babalakin, thank you very much, and all the best with the negotiation with ASUU.
Yes.
But I think at the end of the day, Nigerian parents who are watching all of this will expect that the university lecturers will be happy, they will be made happy, and that the university system will continue to grow in terms of standards, and that this strike will not be prolonged.
Thank you very much. I believe it's all in ASUU's hands. We are co-negotiators. We are in the same boat, and we wish ASUU well, and I wish my negotiating well, but we will together resolve these issues.
Well, thank you.
So
We've got to go. Thank you very much for coming to the morning show. Just hold on a minute. We need to close the program.
Yes. Well, this brings us to the end of the morning show today. Thank you for watching. From our entire team here in Lagos, enjoy the rest of your morning. Global Business Report is next. Stay tuned.